Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for taking out the time for this. We're all really busy these days. So, one thing that I was intrigued by, and this is like one of the major reasons why I started on this, it was like that spark before the revolt. Right? And the spark was I saw everyone who's written an article for Ping or everyone who's made a drawing for Ping, they got these infographics about their viewership and stuff like that. And I was really intrigued by that. So could you guys tell me what went behind that happening?
Okay, I
Jaidev,
feel like
yeah,
I can't answer this because Tejasvi will tell me this is his territory. So,
yeah. So
Okay.
this was a we have a lot of teams in Ping. So this was a completely marketing driven initiative. So
Hmm.
the whole thing is based off of how Spotify gives you your
Yeah.
year in rewind. So we wanted to do something similar for everyone who's contributed in Ping. So that
Hmm.
was the main goal. And yeah, that's about it. So they went
Yeah.
around. We
And
invited
I
them
think,
social
yeah,
media.
and I think this fits Ping a lot as well, right? Because being a coordinator of a club, I thought, what could we do this for our club as well? And then I realized, no, we can't do this. And then I realized many other clubs in Triple IT and organizations can't actually have this fit for their stuff, but it fits Ping so nicely, and I really like that. So, moving on from that, I think this gives a good segue to the teams in Ping. So could you guys tell me how Ping is laid out exactly for someone who's never been in Ping?
okay, so just before like moving on, I think
Okay.
the credits for the Ping reprint entirely goes to like the marketing team and some
Hmm.
members in design. I think Tejasvi and I were like surprised by it because we
Yeah.
didn't see most of it until it came out, which doesn't happen often. So it was nice. Anyway, so there are five teams at Ping. They each vary quite significantly. The team that everyone knows, there's writing. Writing is one of the open teams at Ping. So we have a Ping writing team. The only expectation with them is regular contribution on echoes, that is news section, and magazine pieces.
Hmm. Wait, so
But
if I could ask a
yeah.
question, when you say regular contribution, what do you mean by regular contribution exactly?
Oh, like in case there is a topic that we think should be covered,
Hmm.
we can rely on the Ping writers to spend some time and do it.
Hmm.
But if we didn't have any team list or anything, then it's hard to guarantee that certain topics will be covered because
Hmm.
guest writers may not always step up. But we do have several guest writers, so Ping writing is open that way.
Hmm.
Then we have the design team. The design team, they complement our writing, and they're one of the main reasons why Ping has really like, no, I wouldn't say blown up, but really grown over the past 2 years. They make everything a lot more appealing. It's one of the most creative teams on campus, I think, because they just like work with so many different formats. And I think Tejasvi can talk about the remaining three teams.
Yeah, and then we'll move on to the marketing team. So as you've seen the reprint and they've done a few other campaigns as well. So the marketing team is basically, over the past few years, I think, since we've been here with Ping for, I mean, I've been here with Ping for 2 years now. So I think the marketing team has helped more people to appreciate Ping. So a lot of people
Hmm.
are reading Ping, etc., because of how the marketing team is able to consistently, put up different kinds of stories, and they generally have different kinds of content that goes out. So that's basically their job, right? So to market whatever we produce. Um, then we have the corporate team. Corporate team is basically, as you might or might not know, Ping does not take any money from the college to run. So we're self-sustained. So the corporate team is responsible for us, remaining self-sustained. So they try talking to sponsors and get money for us, more for our servers and whatever else we need to
Hmm.
do. And then we have the web team. So again, the web team has grown significantly. We've done, I mean, earlier it used to be just putting stuff on the website and maintaining the website, but they've added on to new things. So they've created a whole link in bio thing, which is kind of
Hmm.
like a link tree replacement, right? We wanted to make it more Ping, which is more design and more creative. Then you've also seen the freshers issue where they had the interactive map of the campus.
Oh, yeah.
So again, they've done a lot of cool things. So I mean, it's not just restricted to basic putting up website and handling the
Sorry.
server, etc.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's the team. Yep.
All right. So I think that leads me to the question that I've had in mind for almost every single club. As chief organizers of clubs, if I may say that, chief organizers of events for clubs, were usually trapped in the dilemma of how to arrange the sort of hierarchy so someone can reach up as well as someone can stay wherever they're comfortable in. So, what's the hierarchy like? How do I what's the process behind becoming the editor in chief, if I may ask that?
Okay, so I think since you mentioned hierarchy and like how people can join, I think it's important to note that unlike other clubs on campus, Ping cannot be completely closed. We know that there are a lot of people out there who read, and we know that the faculty read. So, it can't be run by a group of like 20 people who want to do whatever they want to do. So that's why we have things like the editorial policy and like strict rules in place, as well as a general open policy for writing to ensure that we capture all ideas. Now, the hierarchy at Ping, as a result, is not at all creative. So ideas are not at all controlled by anyone who has any position. The hierarchy is purely logistical. So when it comes to the editor in chief, well, I guess the process for this like changes every single year depending on how the
Mhm.
junior batch is. But typically, we just the outgoing editor just like asks a few prospective editor in chiefs if they're interested, and then we just talk to them, and then
I see.
uh, it
I think it's
goes
very
very smoothly.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's nothing
Yeah,
predefined.
I think it's important to note here that it's actually not very hierarchical. So when I became the editor in chief, I wasn't even an editor before becoming an editor in chief as such. And I wasn't initially a part of the writing team as well. So it's just if you're interested, then you contribute as much as you want. So
Mhm.
there's no
To be
such
fair, you wrote more than
cap.
some of the writers in the team. So
Yeah, but like there's no cap on how much you want to contribute to the team as such. So if you're interested, then you can choose to become whoever you want, as long as you do some basic things, which is all logistical, as they've said.
Mhm. So it's a selection of sorts, right? Uh,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah,
Okay. So wait, that I think
definitely yes, but like no
yeah,
one's going to get rejected as
yeah,
such if
I
you're
understand.
like.
Yeah. So I guess that leads me to the next area that I want to ponder around. Like, what exactly does an editor in chief do, and like, who? Yeah. What does an editor in chief do, other than say write this article? Could could you like formalize that?
Jade, what do you do?
I, I think the best way to look at this is just like if Ping was a factory, what is the factory pipeline like?
Mhm.
So at the head of the system, we have writing and then we have content that we need to put out. So just content, idea generation, that starts out everything. And then just like managing the writing team, getting things done, setting deadlines. Then further along the line, you have design, which
Mhm.
helps like make a content more appealing. Then that gets passed on to marketing that tries to find new ways in which our audience can like connect with stories. And also they try to get creative and do something different every time as well. And then when it comes to like the administrative side of the factory, we have web and corporate. Corporate is trying to ensure that we have the lease to run the factory, and then web is ensuring that all the machinery is working very well. So our job is just simply ensuring that all the gears and balls they're spinning and
Mhm.
they're working quite well. But yeah, that's about it.
Mhm. And so you did mention about this editorial policy. I did go through a little bit of the beginning of it. I, for some reason, couldn't get myself to go through all of it. I'm so sorry about that. But Why such a detailed editorial policy for something that's a college magazine for a small community?
Well,
I mean, yeah.
there's a huge story behind it.
I
Uh-huh.
think it's also, yeah, but the whole point is, I think it's more so that, you're protected against, you have some certain guidelines on, what is allowed, what is not allowed. Just
Mhm.
because you have the freedom of speech doesn't mean you can do weird stuff. And at the same time, you don't want our writers to be restricted by any sort of, like handicap. So you're free to express as long as you don't.
Mhm. No, but
I mean,
I understand that, but it's still very complex and in depth, right? Wait,
Well, okay, so,
yeah.
so so it all started like a few years back when one particular article kind of stepped outside the conventional format,
Mhm.
and it wasn't very well received.
Mhm.
And that led us to conversations about how can we ensure that our content is treating everyone fairly? How do we ensure that someone doesn't put out slander on our website? How do we
Mhm.
verify our facts? And how do we ensure that how do we just ensure that things on our website are following good practices? So the editorial policy, like, it's a means to check that, because Tejasvi and I shouldn't go rogue, and we shouldn't just put out slander against any single person. And that's why we also like have a very strict editorial process for articles. Like, we recently wrote an article about DebSoc,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
we sent a couple of mails to ensure that everything was factual and correct, right? Because
Mhm.
we know that there are so many people reading our articles, and we know the potential cost of misinformation or like missing information even.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we just try to be thorough. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want me if you want to tell this out, but there's no harm in trying, in asking you. But do you want to tell me the story about that article that caused all of this?
No, so the way you frame the question, I feel like you already know what the story is.
I don't know the story. I don't know the story.
Okay, so it was the piece on the ragging article. So
Mhm.
it spoke about some of the old ragging issues at RepliT, and yeah, and I think there was like some name calling there. So
Oh,
like the community was a bit split on if that was justified, if it was fair. Uh, so yeah.
okay. I understand that. That makes sense. All right. Regarding stories of the past that have almost defined Ping as it is right now, what was the, if I could get a detailed version of the story behind Ping not being a college club anymore?
I think that's an extension of this, right?
I see.
Yeah, so I think like uh, the club's council, rather the student life committee,
Hmm.
uh, it in the past it used to have like some sort of uh, checks on content that would go out. So like they would have to review it. Now, as a body that often like puts opinion pieces about reply course courses and like other cultural activities at reply, we felt that it wouldn't necessarily be practical to be a part of Triple and have a screening process, because potentially someday in the future, uh, content could get blocked.
Hmm.
Uh, so being independent while still having a strict editorial policy, that is
Hmm.
key. It's not one without the other. Being independent was our way of ensuring that we have the freedom to cover what we want to cover, even if it isn't the most pleasing thing for everybody. Though that sounds a lot more dramatic than like it actually
Yeah, true,
is.
Yeah.
Uh,
true, true.
yeah.
Okay.
And it's just so that you're not bounded by anyone.
Uh huh.
That's
Yeah.
that's a simple way.
Hmm. Wait. So it's your wish if you want to talk about this or not. But would you want to talk about the sponsorship or funding like situation in Ping right now, like as of now?
I mean, we're mainly funded by like alumni and
Uh-huh.
student donations so far, like a bit of ad revenue, but yeah, there's nothing too special over there.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our
So,
main costs are just for like the
mhm,
website.
Yeah, the server.
Yeah.
that makes sense. Uh, what does it? How, I understand that there's a proper procedure to get into the editorial team of Ping, but one thing that I think I've struggled with a lot is pushing out like written content when asked to. So about a more from the point of view of something that's more general than Ping, how does one like write content like that on a daily basis and then continue doing so? Because I think it takes like a lot of motivation to do that, like for the first time. You all do it like all the time.
I mean,
I
from
mean,
a personal
all
point
the
of
time is like questionable, and like if someone
yeah,
else has the answer for this, please tell us. But
yeah, but I mean, that's the advantage of having a big team, right? So you have a
Mhm.
lot of people who have some amount of time that they can give us,
Mhm.
which in theory leads to a lot of articles, right? Because if someone has has an interest level of let's say I can do work for this 1 month, and then someone else picks it up the next month. So like you don't have the same people writing the articles. I think that is one
I see.
good thing about Ping. So like we have different people contributing from across different batches. So everyone's motivated for some amount of time, and because of this, and since we have a lot of people, and therefore more people are able to we have a lot of content. It's also so a lot of our content is a writer coming up and saying, okay, hey, you know what, I want to cover the Felicity elections, or hey, I want to cover what Debsog did. And that's why the content happens, because there is personal motivation. So okay, I want to actually talk about something that I feel that others should know about. And once you have that kind of motivation, I think it works well. Our job is mainly ensuring that
Mhm.
they have an avenue to push articles out.
What if you stumble across a uniquely dry month? What happens then?
What happens is then we just struggle through, right? So we keep messaging people, and we keep begging people to contribute, and
I
it,
see.
it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I mean, you generally hope it doesn't happen. And when it does happen, all you can do is hope someone finally says, okay, takes pity on you, and like, okay, fine, I'll write something for you. Or in the worst scenario, I think you write it yourself.
I see.
That's where we've had to write articles because no one else was willing to. It's mainly because of how IIIT is very acad driven. So it's not
no,
mainly
I
because
think the dry spells happen when there's nothing interesting going on at all
Mhm.
at IIIT. So there's like zero news to cover. We faced that problem like a month back. But then in true IIIT
yeah.
fashion, the week after the dry week, every single club has an activity. And now we have an article that's like 7 pages long to cover all of that. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so so yeah, things get compensated well. It's
Mhm.
fine.
If I don't know uh, how good at approximation one would have to be, but could you quantize like a per on a per week basis how one person in Ping in the writing team would have to like how much one person would have to write on an average?
So I think the measure itself is flawed if you want to like measure paying
Mhm.
contributions because people don't contribute weekly, they contribute in sprints. So like when you have a writing task, like say for the magazine, maybe you'll spend like a few hours per week for like maybe 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. And
Mhm.
then you finish that article and then you don't have anything for the next
Mhm.
2 months or so because you worked on a good magazine piece. So yeah, so if you're like talking about that, I'm guessing it would be maybe just 2 to 3 hours per week.
I
It's
see.
not much.
if you work, right? So like if
Yeah.
you, it's not consistent over a
Mhm.
semester or a year, right? So
Yeah,
it's,
I
I
understand.
think it's mostly quality over quantity. So I think if you contribute something of good quality, then you don't need to worry about, okay, hey, I'm going to, be in trouble with for not
Mhm.
doing something. I think if you finish what you're asked of, and that's good enough for us. We don't have any our contributions requirement per se.
That makes sense. But then again, the issue rises that how are you absolutely certain that content will happen at the end of the month, right? Y'all have monthly issues, right? Yeah.
We do. So it,
We
so
try to.
it, yeah, we try to. I mean, in theory we do, right? So, it's also because of we have a lot of editors
Mhm.
who constantly do, irritate the writers to, finish that task. A lot of it is okay, you finish this, and then
Mhm.
you're done, so you don't need to worry about it later on. And I think that works well since the editors are also interested in. So I think everyone has the common goal of getting things done. And once everyone is on the same line wavelength, and then things happen. I don't
Mhm.
think it's that hard to for it to work.
I also think like the marketing team just does a good job of spacing content out. They know how to keep socials alive. So yeah,
That makes
even if
sense.
we do have like 6 articles coming out a week, they ensure that nothing overwhelms everyone. Yeah.
Mhm. Uh, what I am kind of confused though here, but what's the role difference between an editor and a writer? Is it like what the word directly means, or is there more nuance to it of sorts? Like, what what does it like?
It's pretty much the word itself. The
But
writer
but then
writes,
but
and the
then I
editor
have
is just responsible for like
checking the content, right?
for not just checking the content, but like it's a secondary person to talk to bounce
Uh-huh.
ideas off of, uh, to ensure that ideas are flowing. So, like, I think when you are writing an article, anyone would know that to
Mhm.
you it makes sense, like when you're in that moment. But then when somebody else reads it, it may not always, every single idea may not come out the way
Mhm.
you wished it would. So the editor is just responsible for ensuring that ideas are properly communicated,
Mhm.
apart from, ensuring the editorial policy is
Mhm.
stuck to and all that.
All right. So one thing that I'd love for you guys to talk about is Ping has been known for a long time about how it's great design and artwork in articles and publishings and
Mhm.
stuff. Because I've done interviews for a design team. I'm fairly certain many other clubs have done interviews for a design team. How do you all curate a design team that's willing enough to like contribute this much? Because my design team's not doing that well.
I think it's also to do with the number, right? We have the biggest design team on campus, so you don't have to do, you don't have to design art posters or
Hmm.
magazine things for 5 articles over a year or something, over a sem at least.
Hmm.
You probably have to do 1 or 2 tasks over a semester, which then does not amount to a lot of work, but the work is of good quality. So I think everyone who's designing in the campus has, is very talented, and they can design good stuff. But a lot of times, I've seen it in other clubs, and I'm sure you've seen it as well. Since they're overworked, it gets hard for them to come up with the same quality. But again,
But
everyone's, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, but I think it's more than a numbers thing as well. Like you can have
Yeah,
the biggest design team on campus, but without the content to design about, our design team would not work, right? Like
yeah,
even I've
definitely.
been a part of design teams, and the most boring part about like any design team is like just general creative repetitiveness,
Hmm.
where you're told to make posters that adhere to a specific theme, and then you have to make something along those lines again and again. But at Ping, because our content changes so much, our design team also has the freedom to like do so many things. And yeah, I think like the people who are part of design, they just really like having a creative group where they just bounce ideas off, and then
Hmm.
yeah.
I think
So
it's
I think
also because of the creative directors, right? So the
yeah,
people in charge of the design team. they're very active, and they make sure the designers so know what they need to do, and if they need to learn some new technology or something, they work with them and make sure it happens, right? So they're not left to fend for themselves, the designers. There's constant support with them, so which is important, right? Especially if you're starting out. We have a lot of designers, myself included, who just learnt design, and we were guided very well. So I think that's very important. So to ensure that you're staying true to your job, that is finishing a good design.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. But okay, how big is your design team now? Really curious because you're like it's huge. How many people are there in your design team right now, approximately?
Well, active members is a different number from like the actual number.
Registered number.
But yeah, I think like 25 maybe.
25
Yeah.
active members?
No, 25
25
total members.
okay.
Maybe like 15 to 17 active members.
Okay, that's still a large number.
Yeah.
I remember being in the Felicity design team, and we were like 4 or 3 people making posters for all of Felicity. It was such a pain. So moving on from that, there's many tags to an article. There's many types of articles in Ping, right? So there's this thing called editorial. I just picked this up from your website. I'm so sorry if I'm using these terms wrong. But there's editorial, there's campus, there's echoes, there's opinion, and then there's cartoon committee and fresher. What is editorial and etc. etc. What is editorial?
So editorial is just content that the editors put out that the Ping team largely agrees with.
Okay.
So what we generally do is the editorial, if you like go all the way back to like some of our first magazines, it's just interesting to see how the chief editors talk about that particular moment in time, some interesting events on campus, as well as the effort that goes into marketing. So it's like a pretty standard magazine piece. The remaining themes, I guess, Tejasvi can talk about.
So the cartoon committee is something that we design, plus I guess a bit of the marketing team as well, which is basically putting out cartoons that are relevant to what our campus is like. So they're they're very popular, and we have people not part of Ping also give us cartoons and say, can you post this for us? And we've done so, and it is really good to see that people are active. The other tags that you see, opinions, are basically opinion pieces. So you have your news pieces, which are basically reporting news as is, and opinion pieces are your take on XYZ. So like your take on what the gender, what the diversity pool is, and then your take on cross entry. Yes, that's a good article. Yep. So those kind of things. So these are mainly so that you have different tags, and if you're going through the website looking for things, you can find similar things.
I forgive me because I was not an active viewer of Ping app per se till like 3 days ago. But what is Echoes?
Echoes is the monthly newsletter that we do. So it's basically a recap of what happened in the campus and a few opinion pieces.
But it has a cooler backstory. So Echoes was IIIT's newspaper like more than 10 years ago, but then it died because it was a IIIT product.
Wait, when you say a IIIT product, you mean by the institute or the students?
No, I just meant like how things at IIIT happen and then they fade out. Yes, so Echoes was a thing long ago. It was like one of the first publications at IIIT. You can read more about it in like our article 10 Years of Ping that Zubair wrote. So after Echoes, Ping was founded, and then we've had a newsletter for around like 2 years now, but we tried making it a newspaper recently, like with a newspaper print, and we called that Echoes, and we essentially rebranded the whole thing, like a new logo and everything. But so Echoes is actually a newspaper, but newspaper design we've learned is an extremely complex process with like entire courses dedicated to it as well, because planning it is not easy. So the actual digital print version of Echoes, we're still figuring out a sustainable way for the designers to work on it. So as of now, Echoes is a newsletter. Yeah.
Wait, I just got an idea right now when you said that it's proper print style newspaper. There's like a lot of advertisements of newspapers, right? And you could sell, you could not sell, but you could give out or open up ad space for other clubs and stuff. That would be dope, yeah. Like,
I mean, we've not thought of asking clubs for money because
no, not
that
money,
is not
but
required.
like
Yeah,
just
but I get what you
ads.
mean. But I think in general, if a club wants to, yeah, but I get what you mean.
Yeah,
That
I
is
think
something
that's a
that can
cool
be looked
idea.
at.
Like the closest we've had to an ad in Echoes, I think, is like when we released Echoes last. I think that's when Dance Crew also did their rebranding, and like we gave them a shout out to like follow their socials or something. In the last digital print of
Uh-huh.
Echoes. So yeah.
Depsoc needs a shout out. We had a rebranding like a couple of months ago. Come on. All right.
We'll,
Okay. So could you guys talk about an article that's like very close to each of you? Is that possible? Any of you?
Okay. Does it have to be an
um,
article we wrote?
I don't know. I didn't think that far, but
Okay.
any article that's
I have one. I have one that I wrote. So for me, it's
all right.
so it's the piece on what do you call the whole CA and RC debate. So we had a panel. We had a panel discussion. Everyone was there. I think you had been transcribing if I,
Yeah,
or
I was
recording if I
transcribing that one.
yeah. So thank you for that. So that was special because we spent a lot of time working on it. Fact checking, making sure what people said was correct, making sure we got what people said instead of because it was such a interesting topic, and we had to be very correct because there was no scope for error because it is such an important topic in our country. So we had to make sure we follow all processes. We had a bunch of editors come in and edit the article, proofread the article too, and then even then we had to struggle. So there were a lot of people who made a lot of comments, so we had to track down sources for those comments. It was in general a very good learning experience for me, where I had to learn how you do research, etc. I think it's one of the longer pieces in Ping. And I think something that I personally liked after that is, and I think which is a very cool Ping tradition, is we go for parties afterwards. So I think Zubair, who was the chief editor at that time, took all of the writers who were in that article to give us pizza, and we just had fun. So at the end of the day, it's not transactional, and that's what Ping is about, right? We don't want it to be just, okay, you apply to Ping, write this article, and then boom, next person, next article. It's more of you make friends and you talk about stuff not related to Ping as well. So that was why that was where I felt, okay, Ping is very it's more than just a club, right? It's more than that. So that's it for me.
The pizza comment
I
took me
think
back to college. Pizza in college. All right, Jaidev.
yeah, I think like the favorite piece that I've written is this piece that I wrote with Shraddha recently about the diversity pool. I think it's like it's a bit of a classic plus like a very typical piece in that it talks about why diversity is important and whatever. But when that piece came out, it was around the time when like there was so many discussions about why the diversity pool itself was redundant or just like a general sense of hostility towards the other women on campus for whatever reason. So like I felt like that was one article that maybe like at least kind of moved the needle for some people in terms of their perception of the diversity pool. So that's something I was happy to work on. I think like my favorite Bing article like in recent times would be like 10 years of Bing, because that captures like why Bing does what it does. So like if you go through that article, which is like an excellent piece that Zubair wrote, you get to see Triple IT's history through Ping articles. and like that describes why Ping does what it does best. It's not just a platform of expression as we like to use during intro to clubs and other presentations, but it's also one of the only ways in which you can really see how IIIT has grown. Like, yeah, you can read about protests that happened long ago. Like, without Ping, how is that information being passed on, right? So,
Wait, there
yeah.
was a protest?
Yeah, I was surprised as well.
Okay, I
I
didn't
think
read that
I think it
article.
was something to do with a holiday near Felicity or something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Huh. I need to read that article.
It also talks about like very cool facts. I think the marketing team did like a whole 10 facts that you didn't know about like the campus, and you had stuff like Arogya being, I think, a spa center. I don't remember.
Yeah,
Was
with
it?
like mud baths and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. So stuff. So there are cool things that we learned about the campus because of the article. Yeah, that's a good article.
all right. So, could I get the story behind? I mean, I'm not sure if there is a story behind, but still, is there a story behind the beginning of the freshers issue, or did it just happen from the beginning?
I think Jaidev has a good idea, right? I think the
I mean,
freshers issue
it
started
started
with,
with your batch.
Oh,
yeah, our batch, yeah.
okay.
So it's just a year old.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
I see.
I think the point of the freshers issue was, well, number one, find an interesting way to introduce Ping to everyone. Ping isn't an event-based body. Like, we never book out auditoriums and like conduct events because, well, we don't know what the event would be. So the freshers issue was like our way of introducing ourselves to everyone. But it was also like a very interesting creative experiment. I think at that point, there were like a few ideas that we had that we thought would help freshers, like a bucket list, some information about like a fun map about the campus that
I
we
like
recently
the I
made an
like the juicy
interactive.
canteen secret menu thing. Even though it's not a secret menu, we all called it a secret menu. I had a triple Oreo shake that day. It tasted like cement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, but
I
there
think the
are
goal
very,
with the freshers issue was just to like make everyone feel happy when they join campus, because yeah, it turns out a lot of seniors on day one itself they're like bashing IIIT for whatever reason, like classic old people. So yeah, it was
We are
just a
old
way to
people
connect with
now.
the freshers batch. Yeah, I guess
I
so.
think even the freshers issue that we released, I think we did two this year, right? So both the things that we did were actually very good. So we had the interactive map where you could, that was in collab with, I think, we used a lot of the photography clubs pictures and stuff. And then the whole, we had a very cool magazine thing as well. So it was, yeah, so that's a good way to connect with freshers, as Jaidev said,
Yeah, and I think like Pooja and Ainesh's piece about like day at IIIT,
I
that
read
just
that
like
piece. I really like that piece because of the way it was written.
Yeah, that was a good piece as well. Yeah, so I
yeah.
think in general, I think old people like Jaidev will look back at it and okay, this is what
Old
like
people like Jaidev. He's just like 1 year older than us. Okay.
but like
No, ironically, I look the youngest among the three of us. So,
That is true.
yeah.
yeah, it's probably to do.
It's
It's
because
fine,
I have
Jaidev.
like a wide call like cheekbone or something. I don't know. Uh oh wait, I was getting to a good point. I know what I was getting to. I think we can move on to the next one because I forgot. The next one was the origin behind the cartoon committee. I will remember what I was gonna ask before and I will ask it. But is that an origin story behind the cartoon committee?
Um, I'm not sure. So like, I think
Okay.
this was an Ahish thing. So Ahish is like,
Uh-huh.
Ahish is one of the like founding design team members. And I think like we were just talking once, and then he did a cool cartoon, and we've been discussing like how we could grow the illustration team at Ping. We've done illustrations in the past as well, but we thought we were trying to look for like a systematic way to grow it. and also give them some creative independence, because it's not always fun to be told, oh, make an illustration for this particular article, for this particular paragraph. That's quite restrictive. So we were trying to think of open ways to do it. So we just created a WhatsApp group randomly and tried to see where it went. And turns out people had a ton of really, really funny ideas. Yeah. So it's just like a very organic, spontaneous thing that's happened.
Like
See,
most things on Ping, right?
Yeah.
wait, so there must be a giant overlap between the marketing and design team, right? Because it's very graphical and show people what's happening and stuff.
I think
Or
I think there's a huge overlap in all teams with Ping. So like
mhm,
it's they're not very it's very fluid. So we have writers who design, we have people in
mhm,
marketing who write. So it's very everyone does a bit of everything. So like everyone's free to attend all meets. So and in general, since all the three teams are very creative base, so you have overlaps, and in general, yeah, there are a lot of people who do all sorts of things, and that's why it is easy and that's why it works, right? Because it's not just okay, I did my work and then he can do his work, but it's also
mhm.
like okay, I know what you need what you need me to do, so I'll do it in such a way that it's easier for you to do as well. I think that helps everyone because because it's very fluid and not rigid.
Wait, I just remembered what I was thinking like 2 minutes ago, and that was I had I be- because of the freshers issue that we received in the induction, right? That first time when clubs were introducing themselves and Ping passed out flyers, and it had the map of Triple IT. Just looking at the design of that document itself, I think the quality of that document, I think that instantly changed my perspective about the college in general, because somehow, for some reason, it was sort of uplifting. I don't think that's the right word, but it kind of changed the view that it's going to be very monotonous and academic, and it's going to be more of a life with you can choose what how you want to spend your time with in college as well and stuff like that. Yeah, I think the
I think
freshers
it's
issues.
not
Hmm.
I think it's not just Ping that does it. I think every time there's an intro to clubs as such, freshers, I mean, myself included, I was very skeptical. Okay, Triple IT is going to be a place where I can only study and do nothing else. But I think when you see all the cool people in college and you see the different clubs, I think it's not just a Ping thing. But yeah, Ping definitely helps to that. But I think in general, whenever you see the different clubs and the different events they conduct, freshers generally are they get out of the false illusion that's created because of different reasons, and they're generally much more happier, and I think that is a good thing because you want people to be enthusiastic about the college.
All right, so most of my content regarding Ping in itself is done, except for the more cliche stuff. I do want to discuss more about you guys as well. So before we get to that, I think we get the cliche stuff out of the way. What's the goal? What's the goal of Ping?
Okay. So I wish I had our about page open right now because it has a very well worded
Uh-huh.
section about what our goal is. But our goal is primarily to be a platform that can capture every single opinion and thought that's there at Reply T, such that when you look back at Ping, maybe like 10 years later, you can see how like Reply T students are growing, how culture at Reply T is changing, how various events are changing like perceptions. So like I think some of our most recent work is like the best example of that. Our whole coverage of the coronavirus and how things have moved online. Like looking back at it, you can see how Tripartite handled it through our timeline, how various things were impacted, but how resilient, I guess, like some of the clubs are in terms of conducting even more events than they've like ever had in an online mode. Yeah, the things that only articles and like stories can really cover. Yeah.
All right. And the second cliche thing is, how does one get into ping? I'm very certain y'all have told this like a billion times, but still I'm gonna ask it once more. How do I get into ping?
So I think if you want to write or design for Ping, you're more than welcome to do so. So like if you have an idea, you want us to cover, you want to write, let any of the editors or chief editors know, and then we'll work it out with you. Follow the standards that we have so that the article is of a good quality. And but if you want to join the marketing, corporate, or the web teams, then we have some more stricter rules as such, where you need to go through an interview process. Again, if you're I think more than your ability, I think what we look for is your enthusiasm. So if you're enthusiastic, that's something that you can't teach, right? You can't teach enthusiasm. So if you're enthusiastic, we generally are more than likely to take you into Ping as such. But if you want to write or design, you don't need to be a part of Ping. That is always there, and that will always be there, because it's an open thing. We don't want few people running Ping as such. So everyone's welcome to give ideas, contribute, give suggestions. Even constructive criticism is welcome. So that's there.
All right. And the interviews that you mentioned, they happen once a year, twice a year?
I think they happen twice a year. I think it depends on. So I think this year was weird because we had like two sets of first years coming. Otherwise, I think it happens once a year. Am I correct, Jaidev?
Yeah, I think so. Like our team is also growing really big, so we're not. So like our team is growing really big, but it's not always sustainable to just keep growing. So it's also like a game of how many people we can manage within a team without it feeling like it's just a bunch of people thrown together. So that's just like a small problem we face when we're like becoming bigger. And I think like many of the other clubs and like bigger, older clubs on campus face the same problem.
I think even though DevSocs had like a facelift this year, and we had were mostly, I think, in terms of participation and activity, we're mostly like a rising club, because last year was not as, I'd say, there was practically nothing in terms of activity as compared to this year in DevSoc. But I think a large part of that is because of COVID, because I think the new freshers batch that is joining, they're joining online, and I think that kind of preserves a certain level of enthusiasm that freshers usually have in campus for like the first week, right? Because I think once the current freshers reach campus, after 1 month they just go back to normal, as how IIIT has functioned for the last 20 years or something like that. Yeah.
I think I'll disagree here. I mean, sure, that's a factor, but I think that was the same thing that was said for our batch when we joined. It was like, okay, hey, UG2K19 is very enthusiastic. It's going to die out soon once their first year is done. I mean, we're into a second year. I mean, almost completing a second year, right? And we're still.
When you see the memes about like the design and analysis of software systems course, you would kind of disagree. But,
but I think regardless of how we complain, we're still active in most things that happen in college, and I think that is signaling a change in culture as such. More people are ready to explore their talents, and it's not just academics, which I feel is very good. But I mean, sure, COVID is helped us in that sense because people are fear. But then again, I don't think the argument holds entirely.
Fair enough. I think there's another factor as well, and that might be the fact that every year the size of the batch increases, right? And it's always noticed that a larger college community will be more bustling with exciting stuff, right? Even though it's not a large change, they add like 50 students a year, right?
I don't think so. I think there are like a lot of random occurrences, like
Fair enough.
the UG2 current like second year batch. They're extremely enthusiastic. At least I don't think there are many batches like that. But that's not just pure numbers alone, right? It's just like it's not entirely explainable, I think. Yeah.
I think it's because of the fact that the whole culture at IIIT, I feel, has changed. I'm obviously no one to comment, but I feel it has turned a new leaf in the fact that people are more appreciative of clubs. So we've had a lot of clubs being formed, and people are, saying, okay, this club can do good stuff. And in general, people are attending their events and stuff like that. So I think that is also there. So I think that credit goes to the people at IIIT, not just our batch, even the seniors, to ensure that there's a transfer of knowledge and stuff like that.
All right, Tejasvi, I want you to talk about you and ASEC, the relationship between you and ASEC, and how it all started for a couple of minutes, if you can.
So again, ASEC is a product of quarantine, right? So I think it was just randomly one day. So we've had a bunch of tournaments, and we've had, so sport and IIIT is a complex topic, right? So we have a lot of people who are interested in sport, but because of academics, it's not very organized. So it's very, if you're good enough, you play. Otherwise, you probably don't end up playing. It's just, okay, I go give my attendance in PT, try scanning my way out of it. We wanted to change that, and even though we're online, so I mean that was our biggest hurdle, and it's still our biggest hurdle. So we just few of us came up with the idea, what we have a bunch of events, we have a bunch of people who are interested in sports, why not do something regarding that? So we've collected, we've tried to amass all the different sports in college, and in general we want to focus on getting the people who are not very good at sports to also play sports, and increase female participation. So these are the two main things that we want to happen. And I think we're doing well so far. Obviously, we can't judge till we're back on campus and we have proper events that we've conducted. But from the responses that we've seen, and in general, the fact that people are not showing us away, then why you being a club in why is a sports club being formed in quarantine? I think that is something that we're grateful for, that the IIIT community has taken to us positively.
All right, Jaidev, I'd love if you talk about you and the alumni cell for a bit.
Okay, so it wasn't very it wasn't a very long membership, so I think I was there for like
But still,
three
it's
fourths
a
of the year.
membership. It's still a
I
membership,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, okay. I was part of the alumni cell design team. I helped design the current alumni cell logo,
No,
and
could you tell me what the alumni cell does?
well, I can tell you what it did.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
so they're just responsible for conducting alumni events of sorts. So like talks from old alumni get-togethers. Yeah,
I see.
yeah, things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Would you both want to talk about the club's council and its like change this year, if I may? Because I wasn't involved. I didn't know anything about the club's council last year. And I don't think it played a big role in clubs as much as it is this year, right? So, do y'all, I mean, Tejasvi, you're obviously part of the club's council, but Jaidev, do you have like an opinion on that?
I mean, well, okay, fine. So the club's council was fairly active last year. I
Okay.
think they were responsible for setting up all the email IDs and web infrastructure that clubs have. Like I think last year they had prepared web space for all clubs, but not many clubs actually utilized it. So so I would say that club council has been active.
All right.
But then again, the clubs council is just like a logistical thing, a bridge between the SLC and clubs, I guess. So yes, so like if they can make things better, then it's good. I think they've done a like great job this year. Tejasvi is the under secretary, uh, so like I think Naren and Mike and like the whole team, they've done a good job. Uh, yeah, I mean we're not part of clubs
Yeah, I
council, so I
understand.
can't really understand how impactful they've been. I'm just on the group lurking and like seeing what everyone's doing.
You've
Yeah,
been part of multiple clubs. I guess that puts you in a position to have
yeah,
an
I know,
opinion.
but back then the clubs council
Uh-huh.
they didn't really do much. Like the only thing
It was purely
is just like what
logistically.
filing financials and all
Uh-huh.
that. Yeah, yeah.
So, Tejasvi, do you want to talk about what do you
I,
see as the like from the club's council point of view in the future?
I think we're very excited. So, I mean, a lot of credit goes to Naren and the tech team as well.
Mhm.
So they've been driving forward a lot of initiatives that we have. We're planning on automating a lot of stuff. So we want to create a calendar. So a lot of times
Mhm.
people miss out on events simply because I don't follow the Facebook page, so I don't get to know how do we mitigate that. Like, how do we ensure that doesn't happen? Have
Mhm.
a common app or something where you can okay, this event is happening, stuff like very simple basic stuff. So we want to, and as Jaidev said, we want to ensure that the the communication between the clubs, the student life, SLC, and then you with the clubs is it's smoother. So in general, that's where the clubs struggle, and the clubs have done very well as well. So we've had, I think, 4 clubs now that have recently been created. A couple
Mhm.
of clubs are again they're planning on. I think the they're thereabouts. They're trying to become a club, and
Uh-huh.
in general, people are more interested in activities, and
Mhm.
they're more willing to focus. And I think it'll only get better. I don't see it reducing.
Mhm.
I think this is a good time to plug an upcoming article, maybe next week, about
Yeah,
Clubs Council
yeah.
and
There's an
I
its
see.
reorganization. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
there's an article coming up.
Nice. Uh, I am done with all the content that I had to ask for. If y'all wanna have more of a discussion right now, we could do it. But yeah,
I think this is a good thing that you've started. So, like, I think
I
if you
don't
can
know.
keep doing
I
this,
don't know how far this will go because SAD hasn't started properly yet.
I mean, it is in full flow. But I think if, regardless of that, if you're able to continue this in whatever format, that'll be very
I
cool.
hope. I
Because I
hope it. I
think,
so hope it works out. Initially, this was meant
and
to be. Yeah. Initially, this was meant to be part of a depth. Initially, this was meant to be part of DevSoc, according to my point of view, right? So, like when I joined college, I saw DevSoc, and I'm like, next year, whenever I'm in the DevSoc organizing team, I want this to happen. All right, and that was all by myself. I didn't tell it to anyone. Okay, and on the top, it was it's a podcast. All right, but now when I'm a coordinator, discussions with Avijit and Mayank, and they're obviously very sensible people, and they're like, podcast doesn't fit DevSoc, and I'm like, oh, dang it, I can't do a podcast in DevSoc. And then they're like, you still can do a podcast, and here I am. I don't know what the success of this thing will be, but I just hope that it's enough for clubs to be, clubs to put themselves out there. Yeah, clubs and organizations, because I can't say clubs for period.
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hmm.
definitely. I think any student led. I mean, as a club's, as the under secretary, any student led endeavor is welcome. So if
Mhm.
you even if you just do this one off thing and don't continue, I still think of it as a success. I think everyone should, just because you put in the effort to contact us and
Mhm.
do the whole thing. That in itself is a great thing. So congrats to you for that. But I
Man, the
hope
thing
you
isn't
continue
even
though.
out yet.
I mean, if
Yeah.
regardless of whether you do it or not, right? The fact
Mhm.
that you had the idea and you're willing to put in effort is enough for, you know, for something to happen, right? So I think
Yeah.
all these small things are what make sense.
All right. Thank you guys a lot for being the guinea pig of my endeavor. Yeah, you're the first organization that it's good. This is going to be episode 1, and I have like a list of clubs in front of me. And I thought Ping would be a great place to start because having a conversation about Ping is always easier than many other clubs. Yeah, so testing stuff out with y'all was super fun. This is definitely going to go up. I hope it works out. I don't know how the recording software still works. Uh, Thank you guys for being here. And
You're
yeah,
welcome. Thanks for
Yeah,
having us.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I I guess we're